He threw a screen pass that turned into a 66-yard celebration, and for a few bruised, hopeful minutes, Cleveland felt like a team with a future instead of just a defense with good PR. The Browns walked out of Las Vegas with a 24-10 win, and somewhere between that long screen to Dylan Sampson and Myles Garrett's third sack, a season that's been mostly question marks found a tidy, fierce little answer. ClevelandBrowns.com. Shedeur Sanders didn't play like a polished veteran. He shouldn't have. But he played like a kid who'd been given the right week to learn and then asked to take a test. 11 completions on 20 throws, 209 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. None of those numbers scream roster reset, but they do scream promise. The touchdown, that 66-yard screen that turned into his first NFL TD, was the kind of play that reveals more than a box score: timing, tempo, trust. After getting a full week of first-team reps, Sanders looked calmer, made better reads, and didn't force the team into the kinds of mistakes that crushed him a week earlier. Yahoo Tethao. If the mood in the locker room changed overnight, it was because the defense supplied the muscle to make offense's growing pains irrelevant. The Browns' front overwhelmed Las Vegas, finishing with a 10-sack night that left Geno Smith battered and a Raiders line embarrassed. Myles Garrett led the assault with 3 sacks, extending a streak that now has him sitting at 18 sacks on the season, a mark that has the league taking notice and the franchise's single-season record already in the rear view. Garrett is suddenly playing at a level that makes opponents plan their whole week around him. CBS Sports. There's a scene you don't get in numbers. A rookie QB walking back into a huddle that just punched someone else's lights out. Confidence is contagious, and when your defensive stars deliver bone-crunching proof that the team won't be out-muscled, the offense can get away with a few rookie miscues while it learns to breathe. Sanders threw his lone interception, but the Browns returned to the fundamentals that win ugly games: sound play calling, a handful of explosive plays, and a defense that refuses to be outworked. That's how 24-10 happens, even when the offense is still a work in progress. ClevelandBrowns.com. This win mattered beyond Sunday's box score. Since the franchise rebooted in 1999, no Browns quarterback had won his first career start. The team was 0-17 before Sanders reversed the streak. That's not just trivia. It's a psychological millstone the franchise has carried for a generation. Breaking that kind of weird historical curse gives a young player and his teammates a small but real shove, the belief that the past isn't destiny. When your first start ends in a win, all the coaches' pep talks about one game at a time start to feel like things that might actually happen. AP News. Still, don't confuse a promising night for a finished product. Cleveland's offense remains a sketch, not a painting. Timing with primary targets needs sharpening. Protection schemes need tweaking against real pressure fronts, and the team's long-term plan at quarterback is still a question mark. Kevin Stefanski refused to name a starter for next week against the 49ers, and that restraint makes sense. Medical reports, practice reps, and tape study have to do the heavy lifting before any permanent pivot. Sanders bought himself something tonight, not guaranteed tenure, but a real, demonstrable audition tape. ClevelandBrowns.com. What the Browns have, though, is a template they can repeat. Get the defense to dominate the line of scrimmage, scheme a handful of high-percentage plays that feed playmakers in space, and let a young quarterback develop without being asked to carry every drive on his back. The 66-yard screen to Dylan Sampson was the perfect microcosm. A simple call, executed cleanly, turned into a game-defining moment because the blockers delivered and the rookie read the chance. Football is often about small margins. Tonight, Cleveland stacked the little ones in their favor. ClevelandBrowns.com. And then there's Garrett, who is having a season that rewrites expectations. When one player can change the tenor of a game with consistent pressure, when offensive coordinators have to start scheming not to beat him, but to simply survive him, you get to a place where the rest of the team benefits in ways that don't always show up in the stat book. Garrett's pass rush has created the kind of field tilt coaches dream about: shorter drives for opponents, better field position for your offense, and more opportunities to turn defense into points. If he keeps producing at this clip, the Browns will remain in every game regardless of the QB question. Yahoo Tao. There's human texture here too. Sanders' first start came a week after a difficult, chaotic debut and after a home burglary that added private stress to professional pressure. To show up in Las Vegas, execute a clean week of practice, and then manage the game without imploding says something about his temperament. He celebrated like a rookie who just cleared a very large hurdle, and that matters. The locker room noticed, the fans noticed, the front office took a note. That one win doesn't fix roster flaws or erase season trends, but it does give Cleveland something it lacked most of the year: momentum that feels real instead of hopeful. clevelandbrowns.com. Now, the schedule doesn't let them rest. The 49ers come to town next, and they're a team that won't tolerate sloppiness or give the Browns the same kind of room the Raiders handed out. This is where the rubber meets the road. Will Cleveland double down on what worked? Defense-led mornings, quick reads for the quarterback, and schemed plays that create explosive potential? Or will they revert to the habit of asking too much of a developing passer? The answer will tell us if tonight was an outlier or the first chapter of something steadier. clevelandbrowns.com. If you walked out of Allegiant Stadium with one image in your head, let it be the 66-yard screenplay. Simple on the surface, chaotic underneath, and finished with a burst that made everyone in Browns Brown feel like they were part of the same story. That's what winning feels like when you're rebuilding. Small, perfect moments that suggest a bigger thing might be possible if you keep doing the hard, boring work. For now, celebrate the win, savor Garrett's dominance, and let Sanders sleep with a little less pressure on his pillow. The rest is film study, grind, and time. You ever watch a kid get handed the keys to a car and actually not crash it on the first corner? Shedeur Sanders stepped into a starter's uniform Sunday and, for a few hours, turned skepticism into headlines that felt a little lighter. The Browns won 24-10 in Las Vegas, a tidy, ugly, precise kind of victory, and Sanders threw his first NFL touchdown on a 66-yard screen that turned into a statement more than a play, Reuter. Immaculate. He finished 11 of 20 for 209 yards with one touchdown and one interception, but those numbers don't tell the whole story. He made the big throws when it mattered, including a 52-yard shot to Isaiah Bond that flipped field position and a patient, surgical 66-yard screen to Dylan Sampson that finished in the end zone. For a fifth-round rookie making his first start, that's not a cameo. It's usable tape. ABC News. The Browns didn't win this the usual way, and that's important. Cleveland's defense ate the Raiders alive. 10 sacks, relentless pressure, and a front that made Geno Smith feel like he was playing in slow motion. Myles Garrett led the charge with 3 sacks and a forced fumble, and the defense carried the team through stretches when the offense stalled. When your front four turns the game into a series of manageable third downs, a rookie QB's mistakes shrink into coaching moments instead of season-long headlines. ESPN.com, let's pause on Garrett for a second because this season is becoming the Garrett show. The guy's on a historic run. 3 sacks in this one, another game that proves his motor and technique are unlocked. He and that defensive line gave Shedeur the breathing room he needed. The scoreboard wouldn't have looked the same without the constant pressure applied to Geno Smith. Cleveland's identity right now is defense first, and that's the gift you give a rookie trying to stay calm under lights. Clutch points. There's a mental currency to all of this that matters more than yards or tweets. Shedeur walked into the league with everything turned up to 11, a famous last name, a draft slide that became a storyline, and the microscope of